Hola, Konnichiwa, Salaam, Ciao Namaste. Peace to all. This is the Pink Elf in the Room conversation, and I do have a special guest, but they're gonna be talking off camera, but we're gonna be talking one way or another about this. We're going to be discussing about no control. Now, you might be thinking, well, I don't know what that means. What do you mean, no control? What is that supposed to mean? What we're discussing simply is about how, in our own environment, how we manipulate certain situations, and this can play a huge role on the human ideology or the psychology, I mean, of how we act in a sense because we feel we have no control of certain things when it comes to people. And the problem with that being is the fact that each person on the planet has their own will. They have their own ideology, their own thought process of how they do things, and so on and so forth. And they have a day to day way of how they do things. When someone comes in their another person's environment where they must control that energy, they feel compelled to control that energy because they, like Subway, have to have it their way. That causes problems in a sense, making it difficult for that person because they feel they have to manipulate in order to get what they desire. And if they don't get what they desire, um, it becomes a problem. But the biggest issue is there is no compromising how things work in a sense. How to make things work and what does not work in a sense. We think it's okay to manipulate or to blame people and to play the victim, but don't realize, in a sense, how vitally important, or better yet, how flawed it can be, in a sense. And to Cedric, um, hi to you as well. But we don't really look into that, peer into the looking glass, and see the we don't see the importance of that. Instead, which causes more problems, more headaches, more frustration of who we are, instead of finding a way of how can I compromise and work with a person so that both of us can understand each other instead of arguing, bickering. This is where you ask those questions. What would hurt you so much that you would hurt me just to heal yourself? To those people who manipulate, those people who feel that they have to say something about you or manipulate a situation to have it their way, what would hurt you so much that you would hurt me just to heal yourself? Because that can at times lead to harm to the other person. Maybe not even physical harm, but it can lead to a harm that is, it's good to see you. It can lead to a harm that can emotionally scar a person or mentally scar a person, and it can lead to someone even being tired in a sense because of those scars that had led them to that point. So you have to be looking to change those things. But the biggest question also would be, why does it happen? And I'm gonna let our guests go ahead and discuss that themselves. Why do you feel that that happens?
No control of self, participating in things that um, are not conducive to the nature of your spirit. We just have to seek and find out when we can maintain balance within ourselves, then everything outside is okay. No matter what we participate in all those factors. And it was a good thing. One of the elders said the other day was just making sure that you participate in the gift that you're given, because we don't know how much time we have here. So just making sure we maintain that balance of obtaining as much information and as much balance as we possibly can in this experience, and then sharing it and having a good experience in those things. But understanding all aspects of self in the mind, the body, and the spirit. So just first having that to obtain, then stepping out and helping others is another.
Absolutely. I think that's a hard process that a lot of people don't look into,
Yeah.
especially understanding to change that process of who they are. Um, because you and I have had this discussion where what are we if we are not our traumas anymore, our drama, our issues,
Yeah.
and the way most of us look at it is kind of like an unknown. It's something you haven't tried in a sense, and you feel you can't try because of the fact that it's not you. It's like where it's like a child who has their favorite blanket, and they don't know what they would be without it in a sense. And you wear your traumas and your dramas your as though they're a blanket you keep wrapped around you, as though that is pretty much it. That's the
Well, I mean,
what
that's
makes you
like
who
that.
you
Well,
are.
that's on like a personal, but like just really broad in a sense of just even the things that are controlled around us. Like everything is like programs, and we'll have it through like um, our music and the TV and a lot of the programming like we have on our devices, and just making sure we maintain control within self within that, because there's like so many distractions within that.
True.
like like those are the things that I kind of want to build on. Like we don't really pay attention to that's outside in that direction. So elaborate on that.
I would say for the systems, no, we don't have control because and we discussed this a little bit last video. We don't observe. We don't, and observation doesn't always have to do with what's going on in the physical world, but literally watching yourself. We don't observe what we're intentionally doing. Um, we don't observe the fact that, like you were saying, on being on our phones or being on social media, where do you put the phone down, or just for a minute stay away from social media and actually stay to yourself, take a break, go do what you desire or whatnot, or what can help you grow self, or
Or just maintaining that detachment that exists right there, like using these things because we know that it's just a tool for. It can either be like the distraction, or it can be a tool. Like for some people, I hear them say, it's my vision board. I'll put things up that
like a double-edged
maintain.
sword on.
Right, and it keeps a level of positivity for me. Like if I need my daily affirmations, and there's certain groups out there, and a lot of different like vegan organizations that are out there that are really pushing, encouragement in that direction to raise your vibrations, and a lot of meditators and healers, and more so business-minded people. So I give it that, but just making sure that like we maintain that like control with everything that we have going on within ourselves, to where when we utilize those tools, they're not, consuming. Um,
Our entirety in a sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it just really slows down. And like I know, I found a researcher that was saying that we participate in her book. You're more human with that than you are with other devices, because it's like that connection that you have between.
I think the ironic part is, I think it's a connection because whether paper in general is a part of plants, and plants are energy in themselves.
Yeah.
You're connecting to that energy, and I think the when we talk about technology, I don't personally believe technology is bad, but due to what it is causing in a sense, because you have to understand you got voltages that radiate energy that are harmful to the body. In a sense, you have frequencies that keep you addicted to your phone and
Mm-hmm.
constantly staring at it. One guy I remember who stated that there's more than just regular drug drinking addictions. There's addiction for literally
It's like
everything.
frequencies, yeah.
Yeah, and of course your phone is just a prime example of that control. one
Yeah.
way or another. And it doesn't even have to be your phone. We could say it could be obsession with sex. It could be obsession with exercise. It could be obsession with um, maybe acting negative in a sense about how, pessimism, skepticism in a sense, having an obsession of that and not taking the control because of that. You feel the world's a horrible place, and if it's a horrible place, that's the end of it in a sense, and you're allowing things to control the fact of you feeling that this is a horrible place, and you still are not seeing and
Well,
using
that's in
observation that what about the good things in life? What about the beauty in life? We see beauty where we desire to see beauty. We see truth where we desire to see truth instead of observing it as it is.
mm-hmm.
And what were you saying? I'm sorry.
No, just saying that that was in the mind, just perception,
Exactly.
just perception of what it is that you want to cast forward. And I truly give thanks for that, of just having that mindfulness. And a lot of us don't take that time to just settle down and be in that space. As we were talking about earlier, is just the fact that you have these spaces where it's quite scary for those to quiet the mind, and you're in that space of nothingness, and where that energy does cast down, and you have access to a lot of the knowing, to where having those moments terrifies people when you have those spaces where there's thought and um, just pure energy and motion. It just moves, and a lot of people run from that, and they have to connect to a lot of different other stimulants in order to fill those spaces of self. And that's just that bridge, that commune between the physical and the self. So it definitely has its moments, and that's what I was saying. Just like being mindful consistently, like checking in with self, I think is a good thing.
No, and I completely agree with you on that. I think you have to be willing to constantly check in with self, and not only with that, constantly checking yourself, your thoughts that hit your mind like that. When you feel there's a thought, think about it. Does it work or does it not work with whatever you are trying to manifest or create in life? Is it best for you to think that way? If you think in a sense that, again, like the person who's pessimistic or skeptic, that life is horrible and whatnot, usually you bring energy like that your way by
Mm-hmm.
thinking that, because you have to remember, and I said this yesterday, well, I might have said this yesterday, but anyways, your energy, words, your thoughts create everything. It is energy. So as soon as you speak it out, you literally can create it. Think of it like a snowball effect. If you keep saying things like that over and over, the bigger and bigger and bigger it just gets around you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not checking your mindset of how you think of things, um, you'll constantly, of course, keep that way, and you will constantly bring things like that your way, that type of energy. But if you're a constant um, understanding, understanding, and in rotation of the fact of how important it is that, okay, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe there's a flaw in my statement. Maybe I should look around and truly observe things for what they are. You will see beautiful moments right before you that you've never seen. You will see happiness that you've never seen. You will see
Mm-hmm.
joy that you've never seen, because you are now observing things as they are, not
Tapping
that,
in.
not by, as she said, perception.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
this is a simple process. Your perception is what will, yes, it will create that ideology. But if you change your ideology by just simply, as they would say, being transparent and observing things, you will see much more in what you have. And we have a question from Cedric Childress, who says, so your thought process can create an environment. Your thought process can create your environment, because even if you think of it like this, if you live, for example, in a negative environment, and we're using that just to conclude what you're stating, and you perhaps, because there's a lot of people, they go through life and they have their difficulties, but if you decide that you want to go against the grain and change that, you create your own space and your own universe and your own thought process of that, seeing that even if you're in that situation, what I tell people, for example, no matter how dark it gets, you have to be your own light. And whether it's these videos, whether it's someone who does a great deed for you, whatnot, finding those moments or seeing those moments in life, or even creating them yourself, is vitally important to allow your light to glow within self.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, of course, if you're in a tough environment like that, you will stay like that in that tough environment, and you will blame it, of course, on your environment instead of realizing that you have control over self. The environment itself, no, you don't have any control over, but you have the control of how you react, how you think, what you see and observe, how you feel about things, and how you create things around you in any sense. If you shift that while you're in that type of environment, you will create something. You will create whatever you desire manifest. And
Mm-hmm.
for some people, to be very honest about it, it takes time. It's not always simple.
Yeah.
There's some people who can easily do it like that, and then bam, the next day something happens. And there's some people it takes several years for them to get to that point. The question is, who's willing to be consistent, or who's even willing to grow, who's willing to be unconditionally loving of who they are you willing to do that? Are you willing to be compassionate to self? Are you willing to take patience with who you are, even in the moments that frustrate you the most, where you feel you're not where you need to be? That's something that most people have to ask questions about. And I would tell people, for real, ask yourself that question. um, what allows you to glow into who you are? And we have another person, of course. We have spiritual laughs and giggles who's waving, um, and hi to them. Um, but what makes you glow? What helps you to become more of who you truly are? And that's the question you have to ask yourself, and you have to be willing to push that for yourself. I hope that answered your question a bit better. But to add on to a statement, of course, like I was saying, what grows you, what allows you to glow in a sense of who you are. You have to realize that in this, no matter what is happening in your environment, many of us believe I have no control over these situations. I'm just a victim, and so on and so forth. There's nothing I can do. It's all their fault. It's that mayor's fault. It's the police fault. It's the people I lived with. It's their fault. It's your own fault if you do not change those things.
When
If
I hear people talking about, like, not to cut you off,
no,
but
no,
I
no.
hear people talking about, just like, well, I'll just say, for example, the other day, I really was, I'll get like super claustrophobic on areas where, large crowds, and just being, empathic, and being in those spaces of where you're feeling a lot, and those energies are always surrounding. um, what do you say to people who are in those spaces that are really trying to, overcome and conquer those moments where they're having a sense of claustrophobia, or moments of empath and coming into those vibrations of self?
So what you're saying is, so for those people who have those empathic energies, what would I say about
I mean,
that?
if we're talking about the basis of like no control and like having control over self, like when you're coming into a lot of these gifts and being into those spaces and being aware of self in those manners where you can say, I'm trying to expand and work on the energies that shift around me, and understanding, our parts, on the physical and the spiritual.
Mm. What I would say pretty much to that is, on the physical and spiritual, for those people, in my experience, like I said, I'm an empath. You're an empath and everything. And yes, it is not a perfect task. I want to first state that for you guys. It's not a perfect task being an empath, because you feel everything. There's actual meme, we made a joke. Remember
Mm-hmm.
um, where there was a meme that said, "I feel pain in my heart chakra, but I don't know who is it coming from." Since,
Mm-hmm.
and I would state that it's about taking time with yourself, of course, first of all, but being, first of all, observant that everyone is you. It might take time. Like I said, it's not easy task, especially if you're claustrophobic, to be
Hmm.
around so many people at once because it will freak you out.
Yeah, and it's just like maintaining that balance of self and like really trying to shift. I mean, it's like there's a lot of yogis that I speak to, you know, that say, you know, it's very challenging to really channel and focus in on your energy, and that says a lot because it's no different from when we talk about thoughts and like overcrowding those areas where it can get really full in that room, and um, just settling down and centering self, I think is most necessary for a lot of those that are transitioning into those spaces of consciousness with self, and like feeling is I feel one of the symptoms of ascension, where being in recognition of like the energy that you bring forward when you come into um, an environment, and you're responsible for the energy that you take away. Just like the sister that was, you know, speaking in the grocery store earlier today, she's like, I'm just putting out so much, and then all of a sudden I just like stop. And I had to realize I have to give like a bit of self care and tuning in. And she said, when I go into those moments of cycling with self and really, you know, charging up my energy levels, she said it's a whole nother kind of realm because you're more in tune and you're more sharp, and you have more vision and clarity within a lot of things that you want to participate in, and making that room. And just like even within myself, I'm trying to get to a space where I'm in a minimalist like stance point, and like really trying to conform to um, just the organization in my life that it really settles with um, just clarity, just mentally, and like day to day practices and habits. And I really give thanks for like that energy that's around me. And you know, my boyfriend's a really good help because he just really keep things um, in proper perspective as far as like organization, which definitely brings like a space of peace, and it helps like really charge with just like self control and maintaining that focus. But that was like one of the things that is really circling around these days with a lot of folks of just like balancing um, just self within. I kind of ran
No, 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 no. That's perfectly fine, one way or another.
with
But yeah, I mean, Tada again with the impact. It like I say it takes practice, like like what you're saying in a sense that it takes time to grow that within self and realizing that all this is you in a sense, and the more you understand that, the more easier it can be for you to handle being around people. Because I know personally when I was younger, I was an introvert. I'm more of, in today's society, more of an amnivert. I can be quiet when I desire to, and there are times where I very much just desire my peace and quiet and to be alone. But there are many times, as some people have told me, I'm a social butterfly and I can't stop talking. And it's usually due to whatever I feel we are discussing, or just simply possibly the energy I'm around in a sense. But in my experience, again, when you are around people, or like she said, actually, if you put yourself around people like that, the energy will change within self, and it'll be a lot easier. If you can't handle being around people like that, your vibe is your tribe. Bring those people, that energy around you that you desire. If you're in a group where it makes you feel as though you can't feel that way, you can't express yourself or talk to several people at once, go find another group of people you can talk to and grow around and love and become more of for yourself, so that you can push where you desire for self instead of worrying about whatever you feel. We have another question though, but so someone asked, but doesn't DNA and genetic structure react to the environment it's around? And if your thought process creates the environment around you, doesn't that mean our genetic structure is limitless? Meaning you can literally be whatever you put your mind to. Um, your DNA structure does not react to the environment. It's your behavior that reacts. Your thought process in the mind that reacts to your environment. So, for example, if you're around a mother that is always yelling, arguing with maybe her the one she's with, her spouse or whatnot, or even a dad who's doing it, vice versa. Um, and you're in that situation where they're constantly arguing, you will take on those traits. You will also take on those traits if you are in a bad neighborhood or anything. You will take on those traits. However, um, yes, you are correct. You can put anything to your mind, but you have to choose. And most of us do not choose things in life. Um, what we do is we go with the flow, or we see something we feel that is right. So we're going to go with that. Or that is wrong, so we're not going to go with that. We don't see it as a sense of what works and what doesn't work for you personally, in general. What works for you is the question you should be asking yourself, instead of, oh, well, that's not right, so I can't be a part of this, or I'm not going to do anything with this, and this. No, it's asking yourself, does this work for who I am being? Or better yet, is this what I am becoming? If you desire to be negative, then you're desiring to be negative. If you're desiring to be positive, you're desiring to be positive. The question is this who you are being in this very moment? Is this who you are choosing to be? Because if it's not what you choose, then you might desire, or as I would say, I might suggest that you choose something else. Yes, you are correct. You can set your mind to anything, but you have to remember that behavior is what plays a key role. Your DNA has nothing to do with it. Your DNA is a magnificent thing, however, but you mentally has, which is sad. There's nothing that can be done, because it's like creating a computer and you just put information in it as it is.
But that's a part of the DNA, though.
No,
That's a
no,
part.
I mean, but what I mean is the behavioral sense, that when you're a child, for example, and you have parents, how they are, it just gets put into the child. So then the child reacts in that way because that's all it knows. So it will act in the same behavior until it gets to that point. It'll take on some of the likes and dislikes of those it's related to until it reaches that point. What I mean by DNA is that your DNA doesn't play a key role, because of the fact that it's not something I want to say habitual, but that's not the word I'm looking for. It's not something that bloodline wise it gets passed on to you, in a sense.
Mm.
It's something that is more of psychology, behavior. It just is what it is, because of the fact that if one, it's pretty much, if one per, it's like a virus. A virus, if you're sick already and you pass it to someone else, they will get sick, and that's how it acts like. And that literally, for many, because there's 7 billion people on the planet, it has been passed down to generation to generation to generation to act a certain way, because my mom, my grandma, my grandpa, my dad, etc., all acted in the same sense. So it must be true. And we never question, what if it's not? Or what if this does not work for self? Does it help to act like those before you? It goes in the same sense. We had a discussion about this earlier, that if you live in a family where everyone has grown up maybe middle class or poor in a sense, and you desire to grow into a millionaire or billionaire or so on and so forth, you cannot follow the same steps that everyone in your family asks or tells you, because of the fact that they don't know information that can help in that way. And this is why I state to people, what you don't know is what you don't know, and what you don't know can kill you.
Well, that's why that's our job to Our elders have the wisdom on some things, but it's our job as youth to go out and venture and to go obtain information and new ways of building foundations for family, new ways of going out and seeking higher heights for the next generation, and it builds and builds from there. And so that's why you see a lot of homes that, one of the African elders was telling me the other day, you don't see a lot of that out here in the States where there's a lot of generations that are still building upon the same roof. And we're so quick to put a lot of, you know, um, our youth out there and have them kind of juggle things, on their own and not have enough wisdom and experience to know culture within themselves and stand on solid foundation. So we're kind of like put in a space where we have to build those things ourselves and reconstruct better foundations for our next generation. And I think that's where having that understanding between both ends is like, look, I have to get out here and do, what it is that I have to do to better, our cycle. Because when we look at it in that manner and say, well, shoot, when I come back again, I want to be good. I want knowledge passed down to me and not be still trying to like figure out. And that's, I think, is the infinite within our bloodlines, is that cycle of life to where we continue to strive to do like way more and better. But yeah.
No, I completely agree on that. That you do have to look at it to complete yourself and grow yourself in the process of that, because that's a hard task
Yeah.
for most people, um, especially when you have family like that. Like again, to add to what you were saying, yes, your elders will say things that are to help you. And that's always the case. Even with family, they love you, they care for you, they desire the best for you. But it's also up to you to put the pieces together. There have
Mm-hmm.
been many mentors, many elders that I've met, and do not get me wrong, the information they gave me is what has grown me to this very day. However, I what I tell people all the time, you have to be willing to question everything to grow who you are and evolve who you are. Because even if an elder may say one thing, you have to understand that you have to advance that to advance self and evolve further in who you truly are. And if you're even in the position of where I am, where you are trying to help others around you grow who they are, or understand or understand who they are, you have to be willing to constantly question and constantly research different ways and different ideologies. This is why I tell people, don't just listen to me and soak in all this information and think that I know everything, because I don't. Really do your own research yourself
Yeah.
to gain access to more and understanding. That's something that most of us, by the way, do not do. That's another part of what we don't, that you have no control over, in a sense, is we don't research, we don't take time to grow self and really read into what works, what doesn't work, what helps grow us, how does the world work, how does whatever's going on in our world, our life work, in a
Yeah.
sense.
And we have to
We
participate in that rotation of things, but it's like, you know better, you do better, and you make sure that you project those type of things within self. So it's like really participation of pushing that agenda. I give thanks.
No, absolutely.
I give thanks.
um but for right now, for you guys out there, we are gonna end it here.
Yes.
um in conclusion, for those who have no control or no understanding of self, take the time to really watch and understand your thought process, and realize to question everything, to build and research everything, to grow who you are and evolve who you are. Because remember that you are beautiful, you are amazing, you are divine, you are magnificent, you are the gods, the goddesses, and the creators within. So remember that to know thyself is to know the creator within, who you are. And to everybody out there, have a good morning, a great afternoon, and a fantastic evening. To everybody, peace and namaste.